Oh.
Hello, thank you so much for joining us today. We're just going to hold just a moment to start letting some attendees that have been waiting to come in. If you can hear and see us, if you could raise your hand, we'd greatly appreciate it. Wonderful, thank you so much for that. And again, we'll just give this just another moment so that everybody can join us. As more attendees are coming in, I'll go ahead and get started and introduce myself and our speaker. And first off, welcome and thank you for joining us for this fall's Professional U and this session in particular. My name is Brooke Hammond and I am the Employer Relations Coordinator with the UNF Career Success Center. An announcement that next week, the Career Success Center, in partnership with the Coggin Career Management Center, will be hosting the virtual Osprey Career Fair on Tuesday, October 6th from 3 to 6 p.m. via our Handshake Career Portal. We'll also be hosting the virtual diversity mixer the night prior to the fair on October 5th from 7 to 8 p.m. also via Handshake. For this session, we will be monitoring both the Q&A and chat boxes for any questions that you may have for our speaker. So please do not hesitate to enter your questions in those areas if you would like to have them addressed. So right now, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Jessica Lumpkin, a career counselor with the Career Success Center, who will be giving tips and strategies to ace the interview. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Brooke. I'm going to share my screen. It's great to see, well, not see, be part of the session with all of you this morning about acing the interview. All right, so definitely, hopefully you all can see my screen. If you can give a hand raise, that would be greatly appreciated if you can see the screen. All righty. So I'm gonna start out with this video and then we're gonna go forward into that. So I'm gonna give you a minute, hopefully you can hear it.
What makes you think you qualify for this job?
Oh, no! Stop punching me! Please! Don't throw me out!
Well, hopefully we all wish we had a wingman to go destroy the interview for everybody else to ensure that we get the job. But I know all of us act in integrity and we are professional. So I have a question, especially based on what I just asked, true or false? And I want you to type your answer in the chat. The most qualified candidate always gets the job. Is that true or false? What do you think? The most qualified candidate gets the job. Okay, we got some false, and most of you guys are right. It is false. The most qualified candidate does not always get the job. You know, there's a lot of job qualifications, especially when they state it in the job description, but there's a lot more that the employer or the interviewer looks at to decide whether or not the candidate is the best candidate for the job. And that's what we're going to discuss. We're going to talk about what are those qualifications and expectations that the employer is looking for to ensure that the candidate can perform the job. So the whole purpose of an interview is to decide whether or not you can perform the position at hand. And one thing is you should celebrate, number one, that you are getting called for a face-to-face interview because it shows that you met the basic qualifications for the position. So when you apply, they was like, hey, this person looks like they're qualified for the position. Let's meet them face-to-face. And now when you come for a face-to-face interview, they want to make sure and ensure that what you put on your resume, what you put in your application is true. Also, they want to look at your interpersonal skills. They want to see how well you articulate and basically give tangible examples of your experience and your expectations and understand your goals and make sure that you understand their goals and expectations as a company. So that is the whole purpose of an interview. When you hear, hey, I got a job interview, a lot of things kind of go through our mind when we say, oh, I got a job interview. And I call it kind of like the fear factor. Oh, so number one is like the fear of the unknown. What's going to happen during the interview? Who's going to be conducting the interview? That may be one of the fears that may pop up in your mind when you get called for a job interview. The fear of rejection, how will I be evaluated? No one wants to get turned down, especially if it's like your number one choice, like this is a job I want, or this is the internship I want. You want to make sure that you are going to be able to perform. The next one is the fear of judgment. You know that they're going to be critiquing, asking you a lot of questions. You may be like, okay, what questions are they going to ask? How do I prepare for those questions? What qualifications are they looking for? So the fear of judgment. The fear of being the focus. Some interviews are one-on-one, which we're going to talk about, in group interviews. So being the focus and being at the center of attention may also be a fear of some of you. And the fear of talking about yourself. How well do I can sell my skills, my knowledge, and my qualifications and still sound humble, not sound arrogant? So I want you to know that fear, number one, fear is a natural emotion. It's okay to be fearful. And it's not a bad thing either to be fearful, because it shows that you care. And one of the things is you want to take that fear and you want to make sure you energize that in the right direction, which will help you start focusing on those little details. Like if you know that you have a fear of talking about yourself, maybe go start talking more about yourself. If you know that you have the fear of unknown, maybe do your research on the company a little bit. And those are the things that we're going to get a little more into. And we're going to be talking about the 4 P's of interviewing. We're going to be talking about participation, practice, and the presentation and the paperwork that goes into the interviewing process. So the first P that we're going to discuss is prepare. It's very important to be prepared for an interview. The first step in being prepared for an interview is knowing yourself. You have to know yourself. What are your VIPs? Now, when I mean VIPs, I'm talking about your values, your interests, your personality, and your skills. You want to make sure that you thoroughly know yourself. What are the things that you like, you dislike? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Because those are the things that are going to come across in the interview. And if you're still struggling with that, then that may be a sign that you should come in and maybe meet with myself or another colleague for a career counseling. That way you can thoroughly understand how your values, your interests, and your personality and your skills mesh well with the career or industry that you're going into. And so that jumps right into knowing the industry. You want to know the industry or the company that you're applying for. That goes into researching. You have to research and obtain information to reflect your knowledge during the interview. They're going to ask you questions specifically about the industry or the company or the position. And you want to make sure that you're able to answer those questions, and also make sure that you're able to show that you have researched the company and that your knowledge is reflected well. So when you're taking the company and you're taking yourself, you want to put those two things together. And I call that kind of career compatibility, where you're taking who you are and the information that you research and you put it together, because you want to make sure that there's some type of match. You want to make sure that you match yourself to the job. If you do not like working with children, but you have an interview working with children, that's kind of going to come out. There's only so much you can fake if you don't really enjoy working with children. So you want to make sure that whatever that you're applying to, whatever your values, whatever your interests, whatever your personality, whatever your skills are, you want to make sure that you do the job. One thing is that, the skills and the experience that you're putting forth in that position, you want to make sure you show those up, because if your abilities don't match up, the employer is not going to keep you in that job. There's only so much faking you can do. So you definitely want to make sure that your skills and your abilities are there and they match well to the company. So what are employers looking for? Employers are looking for critical thinking skills, strong communication skills, orally and writtenly. They're looking for you to be able to work well with others. They're looking for you to be a leader. They're looking for you to be able to interact with other people from other backgrounds or diversity backgrounds or sexual backgrounds as far as orientation. And then professionalism. The National Association of College and Employers did an extensive study on numerous different employers in different industries. And these employers, these are the mainstream, the top 8 that employers are looking for. And if you're looking at this list, I'm like, oh, I kind of need to work on this, or I need to work on that. This is a sign to kind of start getting into those different areas and really start learning those areas that you need to strengthen those. I always find this slide very interesting to me. In the orange is how employers rate recent graduates who graduated from college and they're embarking in the world of work, their first job out. And this is how they say they rank far as a skill they have. And the gray or bluish line shows how students rank themselves. And as you can see, a lot of times students kind of rank themselves more proficient than the employers. And the one that I really want to bring your attention to is the professionalism and work ethic. And students think that their professionalism and work ethic is beyond the charts. However, employers kind of don't see that. And so it even goes down to, if you look at some other ones like the leadership or interacting with diverse populations, you know, critical thinking or problem solving skills, communication skills. Those are some of the ones that employers kind of see that students or recent graduates need a little bit more work on. So I definitely want you to look at this list and start seeing how you can start developing these skills and start honing in on these skills that you need to improve upon. So there are different types of interviews. I know you hear like, oh, you have an interview, but what type of interview? There's multiple types of interview. The first type of interview is a traditional interview that we kind of think when it comes in our mind, which is a face-to-face interview. They're going to ask straight up questions about your personality, your skills, your accomplishments to show that you're the best candidate for the job. So it's definitely a traditional interview. The next one is a phone interview. The phone interview is typically about 30 minutes in length, and it's really sometimes like a screening to see whether or not you meet the expectation or if you thoroughly understand the position that you apply for before they bring you in face-to-face, because they would hate to waste time and bring you in face-to-face and you don't completely understand what they're looking for or don't understand the position that you apply to. Another type of interview is a panel interview where you have multiple employees or multiple interviewers asking you different questions about the position. So it's only you as a candidate and you have like 3 or 4 or even 2 other employers asking you questions. The next one is a video interview, and a video interview can be 2 ways. Number one, it can be a way like the phone interview where it's like a screening to see if you understand and meet the qualifications of the position. Another one, as we know, we're all in Corona world right now, and so a lot of things are done virtually. So you can actually have a traditional type face-to-face interview, but in a virtual setting. And so that's another thing that can happen for as a video interview. Another one is an informational interview. Informational interviews are informal interviews. They are more for you to kind of maybe reach out to an employer to kind of get understanding of what the industry is. You're really kind of picking their brain and getting information. So it's not necessarily you're interviewing for a position, but you're just interviewing to gain knowledge and expertise within that field or from that employer. And then the last one is a group type interview. And a group type interview is where you have multiple candidates and you may have maybe 1 or 2 employers or interviewers asking you questions or giving you group projects to do. So as you can see that there are multiple types of interviews and you really want to understand what type of interview you're going into so you can be prepared for those questions or for that style of interviewing that's going to be happening. So preparing for a video and a phone interview, there's some certain tips that you should definitely do. For a phone interview, you really want to show your energy because they're not seeing your face. They're not seeing anything about you. But smiling also shows energy. So when you're smiling on the phone, it's going to come through as far as your energy. You know, it's kind of easy to pick up on some of your nonverbal, especially like the nonverbals or the verbals that you say like, you know, those kind of word placements. Those fillers are very more noticeable on the phone than they are in person. Also, dressing up kind of puts you in that vibe to kind of be there for a phone interview. A video interview, some tips is you want to make sure that you're looking at the camera, that you're making eye contact with the employer because they can see you face to face. Granted, it's not face to face as in like face to face, but it's virtual, but you still have that energy that you can feed off of each other. You definitely want to dress up. It's definitely from head to toe because you never know what may malfunction. I don't know if you guys saw all those bloopers that happen where people, you know, may have their boxers on or their basketball shorts and they're dressed up at the top and then something happened and then they had to stand up. So definitely dress from head to toe. You want to make sure that you're in have a neutral background, nothing cluttered to distract the interviewer, and then make sure you're in a good place where your technology can be utilized effectively. And you want to make sure you have a good shoulder and good body language. So these are some tips to help you prepare for your video or your phone interview. So before you even start the interview, you want to make sure that you confirm the date, location. You want to make sure that you arrive in plenty of time. 10 minutes is a good time. Anything before 10 minutes kind of makes it kind of inconvenient for the employer because they're not really prepared for you to be there. So if you're coming 30 minutes to an hour early or 20 minutes early, that's kind of an inconvenience. So definitely 10 minutes is a good time to arrive early before the interview. So if you get there, 30 minutes early, sit in your car, wait, drink a cup of coffee, kind of get your nerves together, and then walk in about 10 minutes early. And then also try to find out what the agendas will be, because some interviews may have you prepare a presentation, or you may be meeting multiple people. So you want to make sure that you have a kind of a good idea of what the what the agenda is, and also what type of interview this will be. During the interview, there are questions that will be asked. They're going to be asking questions about your knowledge, skills, and your expertise and your accomplishments. However, there are illegal questions that an interviewer or employee should not ask on the interview. And as you can see, there's multiple ones, like how old are you? How is your health, your religion? And you definitely do not have to answer these questions. And there's ways that you can kind of rephrase the question back to them. That way you can make sure that you always keep the focus on your knowledge, your skills, and expertise. Like if they ask you, how old are you asking me how many years of experience I have doing this position or doing this job or working with this product? What is your religion? You're like, my religious practices will not impact my job. So there are ways that you can do this, that you can rephrase the question. That way you don't answer the question, but you're making sure that the interviewer or the employee is keeping the focus on what's in your resume and what is pertinent to the position that you're applying to. The next P is practice. You want to practice. It doesn't make perfect, but it does make you prepared. So you definitely want to practice. And in practicing, like I said, remember I congratulated you. Like, yay, you have an interview. Let's celebrate. And it shows that you met the basic criteria that they're looking for. So you want to go back to your resume. You want to look at your resume. You want to be able to give concrete and tangible examples that describe your strengths, your knowledge, and your expertise for that position, because that's what the interview is going to be asking. They want to know, is this person that is on paper, is this person for real? Can they really do these different things that are in here? They were going to be asking you to expound upon different experiences. So you definitely want to make sure that you know your resume. Also, come into our office. We do practice mock interviews in our office all the time, and we help students from interviewing for a part-time position, interviewing for medical school applications, interviewing for grad school, any type of interview that you need help with. Our office is more than willing to help you. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you get talking about yourself. Remember, I talk about that fear of kind of talking about yourself, or those different, getting in those jitters out. It's good to get those jitters out with us, because we're going to critique everything that you're doing. So coming in and practicing with us is only going to make you better prepared. And then you want to have an evaluation. After each session, you want to make sure you evaluate your who you are, how you're doing in that position, and develop and see those areas that you need to improve in. So definitely evaluate, even for a practice interview, and even after you have a real interview, taking time before you drive off to kind of digress and kind of like, okay, they asked me this question, I really struggled answering this question. Let me kind of go through and see why, because you may get this position and you may not, or this question may come up again in a future interview. So you definitely want to make sure that you evaluate your performance. So going into the interviewing questions, typically the questions fall in 3 different categories. They fall in traditional questions, they fall in behavioral questions, and then they fall in like technical or case questions. The first type question is traditional questions. These are straightforward questions about your experience, about your background, and about your qualities. Your qualities as it fits to the position. So typically a question that an employer will ask is, tell me about yourself. That question you're like, okay, what are they asking when they say, tell me about yourself? They could be asking, are they asking me, do I have a dog? Do I like long walks on the beach? Do I like to play basketball? What are they really asking? And what they're asking is who you are as it relates to the position that we're applying to. What are some of the things, what made you interested in this position? Who you are as it relates to this position. If you are, working, going for a lab position, tell me about yourself. They want to know about who you are as a lab technician or a future lab technician for our company. How do you fit into that? What is your greatest strengths or what is your weakness question? You know, the strengths are really easy to answer. We can say all the great things that we do. The weakness question seems to trip up a lot of people. And you want to be honest in the weakness question. But when you ask or say what your weakness is, let's say your weakness is, time management. You know, I have an issue with time management. Granted, you may state that weakness, but you always want to rephrase that weakness and come back with a positive. Yes, my weakness is time management. However, I have a calendar in my phone. I make sure I put all my appointments in my phone. I make sure I have reminders for different projects that I do, because I know that that's an area that I need help in or need weekend. And this is what I'm doing to combat it. So whatever you state your weakness is, you definitely want to come back and give how you're improving upon that weakness or how you even conquered that weakness. How would a former supervisor describe you? They want to know what it's like working with you. You know, what is it like supervising you? You know, so that's what that question is about. And why should we hire you? Out of all the candidates, what sets you apart? And these are the typical traditional type questions that employers are going to ask, because they really want to focus on how do you fit within our company? Do you match the experience? Does your background fit what we're looking for? And is your personality a good fit for what we already have within our company? The next style of questioning is behavioral type questionings. These questions are really focused on situations and how you handle and what was your behavior in that situation. And these questions really reveal your personality. Sometimes they even reveal like your morals and ethics, and a lot of times your abilities and skills. So that's what the employer is looking for. For example, provide an example of when you had a difficult decision. How did you approach it, and what kinds of criteria did you use? They want to know, what did you do in this difficult decision? What was the decision that you had to make? How do you handle a dilemma? If you're in a dilemma, what is your thought process in that? How do you break that down? How do you put things in priority? That's what they're asking in this question. They want to know your thought process in dealing with difficult situations. How do you describe a situation where you had multiple projects due at the same time? They want to know, how do you juggle, or how do you manage time or manage multiple things due at one time? They want to know the steps that go into that. You know, tell me about the most difficult or frustrating character or role you had to change into. Maybe you're going into an acting role, and so they want to know how well you take on that persona, becoming that character. And then the other one is about team. How well do you work on a team? You know, especially if you had a difficult team member, how did you handle working with that team member that was difficult? And what did you do? You know, were you the person that just went and told, or did you retaliate? So they really want to know, how do you respond in those behavioral type situations? And they really want to reveal to see, what are your ethics? What are your morals? What are your personalities? What are your abilities? What are the skills that you have? And asking situational or behavioral style questions really reveal that, because they're not straightforward yes and no questions, and they're asking for you to give very tangible examples of these different experiences. The next style of question are the technical or case questions. So these questions are talking about your specific knowledge about the role that you're applying to, or the industry that you're applying to. So it's very specific in what you're looking for. So like a teacher, you know, what role does discipline play in teaching? So they want to know what your discipline style is. You know, do you spank kids? Because if you're like, oh, I believe in spanking a child and blah, 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 that's a sign like, we don't want you in our school. We don't want you spanking our children. So they're asking questions to see if you truly understand the role that you're applying to. And also they want to know that you have those specific skills that they're looking for. Looking at a journalist, you know, what skills do you employ when interviewing individuals for stories? You know, what do you do? How do you pull the story out of a person? You know, social worker, they may give you a vignette for you to read about a whole case that's going on. And they may go through and they ask you to talk about the strategies that you use to combat this case or to improve the situation for a child or for a family. So they really want to see your skills in action as it relates to the position. You know, so really taking this note into looking at your specific knowledge in that industry, your field, and making sure that you've done your research and you thoroughly understand what you're getting into, and the employer knows that you have that technical skill that they're looking for. The next P is presentation. You want to be yourself. It's really hard to be somebody else. So don't be somebody else. Be yourself. I feel like this is like a poster presentation right now, but be yourself. You want to display your personality in the interview. They're not just looking at, remember I said the most qualified candidate does not always get the job. You know, they want to see your personality. They want you to laugh. They want to make sure that you're not only meet the qualifications, but you're a good fit to what we already have going on. I remember when I interviewed for the position I'm going into, I had got this crazy question. I wouldn't say it's crazy question, but I got a very interesting question. My current director asked me, you know, on Monday morning, what cartoon or what person shows up on Monday morning? Like if you had to say a cartoon character, what cartoon character shows up on Monday morning? And I'm sitting here like, oh, I've never been asked this. And I remember I had just got through watching Dory with my daughter, and I was like, you know what? I would say Dory. You know, no matter what's going on, I'm gonna just keep swimming. I'm gonna be there in the moment, and it made everybody laugh because that's me. That's my personality, and that's what they want to see. They want to see who you are. You want to make sure that you dress for success. You want to make sure that your attire is appropriate. You don't want to have anything that's going to distract from what's coming out of your mouth. And then you want to be confident, you know, being confident, you know, knowing who you are, dressing for success. That alone sets you up for confidence, but also showing your firm handshake. Your nonverbals are a sign when you're uncomfortable and when you're nervous. When you're saying when you're not making eye contact, when you're not smiling, all those things kind of show like, okay, this person is nervous. But like I said, if you come into our office and practice, we can kind of help you develop and also help pick out different nuances that you may have that you may not be aware of. We can definitely help you work through those nonverbals that you may be displaying that shows that you're not confident. So I have a question that I want you to put in the chat. Which factor most commonly disqualifies a candidate during the interview? Utilize the chat and write down what do you think is the most disqualifying factor to disqualify a candidate from the interview. What do you think it is? Okay, we got not personable. What else do we have? Anybody else have a factor that they think? Okay, rude. Okay. All right. So I have one student that got it right, and it's inappropriate attire. Inappropriate attire is the most common factor that disqualifies a candidate from interview. How you put and what you show up in is the first thing that an employer is going to see is they're going to see you. And when you walk in, and we all, much as we don't have implicit biases, and when we try to show that we're not biased, those biases are going to come up. If you see somebody coming with their hair spiked up, you know, chain on their neck, or if you see someone with a very short skirt on and the cleavage showing, or if you see a guy, you know, with jeans and a t-shirt on, they got holes in them, those different things are going to come out, and different biases are going to come out, and they're going to be distracting for what's actually coming out of your mouth. Even if you're the best qualified candidate for the position, you don't ever want to do anything that's going to distract what's coming out of your mouth, distract from your resume, distract from your knowledge and your expertise and your skills. So you definitely want to make sure that you dress appropriately so they can actually see you. That's what you want them to see. You want them to see you, not what you're wearing, not the way your hair looks, not what's in your ears or your tattoos or anything like that. You want them to see you as a person and know who you are. So in that, you want to make sure that you have a professional dress code, and you have to know the difference between different professional dress codes. The first one is business attire. Business professional attire is always appropriate for any interview, any industry. You can never go wrong with business professional. So that's suit, tie, girls, blouse, skirt, or suit, tie, whatever you fits you. You want to make sure that you are a business professional. Now, with business professional is business formal. That's more dressing up. So you definitely don't want to overdo it. You don't want to wear like stiletto heels and then your most sparkly thing. The best thing in your closet is not the best thing for the interview. So you want to make sure that you're neutral in some degree to make sure that it's not distracting from what's coming out of your mouth. You don't want to come casual, jeans, t-shirt, tennis shoes. You don't want to come casual. And then business casual, I mean, it has its place, but you don't know, you just want to make sure that you dress up most importantly, and show that you're putting effort, not only into your resume or into your skills or to the craft or to the industry that you're looking to go into, but also what you're displaying outwardly. And these are some other examples of professional attire. So whatever floats your boat, you know, if you want to wear heels, make sure they're not like stilettos, but make sure they're a little heel or flats. Guys, suit and tie, you can never go wrong with a suit and tie, you know, so definitely these are some different examples that you can look into. The last P that we're going to talk about is your paperwork. Your paperwork, as far as your resume, you definitely want to take multiple copies of your resume. And in taking multiple copies of your resume, you never know when you may be introduced to someone else. I personally had an interview in the past where I got introduced to different departments within that company. And when I got introduced to another manager in another company, it was like, oh, can I see your see your resume? I was so glad that I had a copy of my resume to give them, because if I didn't, it made sure that I'm not prepared. So you definitely want to take multiple copies of your resume, because you never know who you may interface with. You want to have a list of your references available. You never want to put your references on your resume or on your cover letter, but it's good to have like a separate list, and I'm going to tell you how to include that. After your interview, you want to send thank you notes. You want to thank the interviewer for their time and their consideration for talking with you. And if you have a panel interview, which would say you have multiple interviewers or multiple employers asking you questions, you want to make sure that you send a different thank you note to each one of those employers. So taking time to send a thank you note to each one kind of just sets you apart from everybody. And it also helps them remember who you are, especially if you're able to kind of put little nuggets or little things that were said within the interview that kind of resonated with you, that you definitely want to do that. And then you want to make sure that you take a portfolio with you. And taking a portfolio will hold all that content that you have. And it kind of also shows that you're a little prepared, you're organized, and you're ready for the interview. So what should be included, or what is an interview portfolio? It's a collection of your best work. You know, it shows that you have the relevant skills and education and training that is needed, and the accomplishments there. So you definitely, that's what an interview portfolio is. It's a collection of all your best work as it relates to the industry that you're applying to. What should be included? You want to make sure that you present your skills in a creative way. So maybe if you may want to do an infographic, or you may want to have a chart, maybe displaying your skills or your some accomplishments that you may have. You may want to have some examples of your actual work that you've done. You want to make sure that you are organized in it. So making sure that you have extra copies of your resume, so that way they can look if they're asking for a reference, or maybe you have a recommendation letter that you want to give. You want to make sure those components are in your portfolio. That way they're available to talk about and with the interviewer. And so also when you're having in your portfolio, some of you may need to have a headshot. So you may want to have your headshot there, and you may want to make sure that you have those different things there as well. So definitely knowing what should be included in your interview portfolio, knowing why you should have one, it makes you feel prepared. It makes you're organized for that position. And then knowing the items that should be included as far as your sample work, recommendation letters, targeted resume, you know, maybe a brief bio, maybe a list of different skills, or an infographic. All those things are only going to better prepare you to be more confident in that interview. Some common themes that employers look for in an interview: they want to know that you can perform the task. They want to know, can you do the job? That's what they're looking for. That's the whole point of the interview. They want to know, is this person really true? Have our dreams came true? Has the perfect candidate walked through the door? They want to make sure that you can perform the task at hand. Will you enjoy the position, or will you quit after 6 months? They want to make sure that they're hiring somebody who's long-term. So they want to know that, make sure that you completely understand that position. They want to know, will they enjoy working with you? You know, so that's why it's good to show your personality. You don't want to be so stringent and so, you know, boxed in that you don't even smile in the interview, because it doesn't come off as you being friendly. So they want to know if you're friendly, and then they want to know if you're a good fit for the company. So knowing the company's values, knowing their mission, knowing the products that they're looking for, you want to make sure that you understand that, and making sure that you are the right fit for that company. So there are different, like we talked about different types of interview. There are different types of interview as far as the auditioning. Some of you may go into like auditioning for different roles if you're in acting. So these are, you really want to know what you're doing. You want to make sure that you're practice because they may ask you to recite a line, or maybe you're having an audition for a play. You want to know that play, know the ends, the history of it. So you want to make sure that you know that. You want to be aware of who you are. You want to have self-awareness. That way you can talk generally about yourself as it relates to that role and why you want to take on this role that you're interviewing, that you're auditioning for. And just like the interview, you really want to listen to the interviewee. Listen to the question that they're asking. You want to make sure that you thoroughly understand what the interviewer or the employee is asking you before you open up your mouth and say something. And even if you need time to think about it, you can always rephrase the question to give your time to kind of process it. Or if you don't completely understand, instead of just kind of shooting from the hip and saying what you think, it's okay to ask the interviewer, can you repeat yourself, or can you explain to me what you're asking? So you definitely want to take those times to do that, and understand that interviewing and auditioning are really not too different, and you can take these same skills and apply them into that setting. So some general tips as far as interviewing, you want to make sure that you schedule when you're in an interview, you want to make sure that you schedule at a time where you can give 100% of your attention, especially if you're in person or on the phone. You don't want to have any distractions. So not taking your phone. I know somebody said going on the phone was one of the things that they thought can disqualify you, but you want to have your phone on silent. You want to have it in a way. Maybe you leave it in the car. You don't want to have any distractions that are going to take you away from your time in the interview. You want to make sure that you have extra copies of your resume. Maybe take the job description with you. That way you can refer to it as you're waiting, or making sure that you can if you didn't understand something in the job description, you can ask questions about it. You want to have your calendar available because they may ask you for a second interview. They may hire you on the spot and they want to know when you can start. So you want to make sure that you have your calendar with you. You want to listen actively to the interviewer, thoroughly understanding the question that they're asked, like we just said it, and even ask for clarification if you didn't understand something. You want to speak slowly and clearly when you're talking to the interviewing. That way they can understand you without difficulty. And then the last one, you want to show that you're enthusiastic. You want to show that, hey, I am excited to be here in this interview. I want this position. I want this job. Please pick me. I'm the best candidate ever. You will never find anybody else like me. That's what you want to portray in that interview. That way they cannot pass you up. So I think from this presentation, you all are ready to ace the interview. So who's ready to ace the interview? Raise your hand if you're ready to ace the interview. I want to see those hands raised because I know you are. All right, so now I'm gonna open it up for any questions that you may have, and definitely follow us on social media. They're up here as well, or even if you wanna come to our office to schedule an appointment, feel free to schedule an appointment. We can definitely help you with your practice interview. We can help you with the documents that you may need, for as like maybe your professional statement for graduate school, practice in your resume or your cover letter. Definitely come into our office and we can definitely help you with that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for that great information. Everyone who's in attendance, this is your opportunity to go ahead and ask Jessica any questions if you need clarification on any of the information that she provided, or if you just had some general questions that you wanted to find out. This is the time to do it. You have her attention. And as people might be typing some questions, do you have any other just advice in general for our attendees, Jessica?
Yeah, just number one is don't wait till the last minute. What you feed will grow. And so if you know that, every one of us are going to experience interviewing. It's inevitable. We're all going to go on an interview. So don't wait till like the day before interview and try to schedule an appointment with us. Come in now. Start working on these interviewing skills now. That way you're better prepared to succeed and ace the interview.
Great, and thank you so much for that information. And I'm not seeing any questions coming in, but there is one that just came in. If we want to come in and get interview help, how do we schedule an appointment via the website, or can we? And yes, I was just about to post our website link in the panelist chat, in the attendee chat. So if you are interested in scheduling an appointment to come in to see one of us in our office, you can certainly go to our website and there is an appointment scheduling request. Keep in mind that we work with the College of Arts and Sciences majors, and we are one of 6 career offices on campus. So if you are not a College of Arts and Sciences major, then you can certainly visit the Career Center for the college that you are a part of, because each college has their own Career Center that is specifically designed, and they're subject matter experts in those careers and paths. So we had a couple other questions here. It says, this might be odd, but I connected with a very high up individual in the field I want to go into on LinkedIn. Should I reach out? How would I go about that?
LinkedIn is an excellent platform to connect with individuals, and it's completely appropriate to reach out to high up officials on LinkedIn. That's what it's for. You know, you always want to approach it in a professional manner. So definitely greet them and salute them with whatever title that they may have. And then also just make sure that you're clear in what you're looking to get out of the relationship. So definitely if you're looking to say, hey, I really want information about the company, you really want to be clear, or can I have an informational interview to talk to you about whatever industry or field that they're in? Definitely be clear about what you're wanting from the interview, but it's completely appropriate to reach out to them. Just make sure that you maintain professional communication with them.
Excellent advice. Another question. If a person asks you on the spot a question that catches you off guard, how do you play it off?
There's no way to play it out, especially sometimes with your facial expressions. You may kind of get caught up, but it's always good to, like I said, restate the question. Kind of gives you time to kind of digress the question, kind of think about it before you state it. And if you don't completely understand the question, or you feel like it's an illegal question, you can definitely rephrase it to definitely keep the spotlight on your knowledge, skills, and qualifications. However, if it's something that you don't understand, or you feel like you need more information to answer that question, it's always appropriate to ask clarifying questions so you can thoroughly answer the question appropriately.
Great. And one last question we have. I'm often unsure what I should do with my hair for interviews. What hairstyles would you suggest? I have long hair. What would you suggest is the best, most professional hairstyle for long hair?
I got you.
Or any hair.
No, you're good, bro. At the end of the day, you want to be professional. I mean, you don't want to take away from the words that are coming out of your mouth. You don't want to take away from, you know, what's your resume. So whatever you can do to make sure that the focus is on you as a person, do that. If you feel more comfortable, if you're going to be playing with your hair or tilly-tallying with your hair, then maybe it's not like, hey, I need to put it up, you know. So you don't want to do anything that's going to take away from what's coming out of your mouth. But wearing your hair down, wearing your hair in a bun, either way, long as it's in a professional manner or state, I think that's fine. You know, professionalism is somewhat subjective in a lot of ways, but you just don't want to do anything that's going to take away from what's coming out of your mouth. So that kind of is up to you of how you want to wear your hair. But if it's going to be distracting, then definitely put it up.
That's great advice. And it looks like those were all the questions that we had. I'd like to thank Jessica, our speaker, for coming out and talking to all of our attendees today. And thank you to our attendees for joining us for this session on acing the interview. I sure hope that this has been really good information for you to be able to take with you as you embark on your interview processes. And just to let you know, all the attendees will receive an email from us with a survey link to give some feedback on the session, and we'd really appreciate your feedbacks for that. So on that note, I'm going to say thank you and have a great day, happy Friday, and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you all.